All right. The next thing, modulus. Modulus. Right. Again, you're probably familiar with what modulus is, just for anyone who isn't, this is how you represent a modulus. And what a modulus does is that it never gives you a negative value. It will always give you a value that is greater than or equal to 0. So if I input -3 into it, it will give me 3. If I input 0 into it, it will give me 0. If I input 3 into it, it will give me 3 again. Right. So this is part of functions, and what they really ask you is stuff like, okay, y equals 2x minus 3, right? So what does this look on a graph? So the normal graph of 2x minus 3 looks something like this, right? This is minus 3, this is 1.5. So the usual graph looks something like this. But we know that modulus can never give a negative value, so just chop off these values, right? This won't be part of the graph, right? But you may ask, okay, but what about values that are less than 1.5? What about them? Well, you basically reflect them, right? So you reflect them on the x-axis. So this becomes something like, let me use a different color. This becomes something like this, right? And the equation of this line was 2x minus 3. The equation of this line would be the same thing, but multiply that by -1. So it becomes minus 2x plus 3. Right, and just to show you quickly why that is the case. So 2x minus 3 and minus 2x plus 3. Right. So this is the graph you follow for x is greater than 1.5, and this is the graph you follow when x is less than or equal to 1.5. Right. So if you take any value that is greater than 1.5, say you take 2, you will get a positive value 1. Right? But if I take any negative value, if I take any negative value, let's say negative value as in if I take any, okay, so at 1.5, this will give you 0. Right? If I take any value that is less than 1.5, say I take 1, it will give you a negative value. Right? And I know that since it has a mod, the effect of it is that it will multiply it by -1, right? So if it multiplies it by -1, it will give you 1, right? So here what you're doing is for any value that was less than 1.5, you multiplied it by 1. And if for any values less than 1.5, you're multiplying it by 1, it's the same as saying this, right? So if I repeat this with this, so -2x plus 1, if I input 1 into it, if I put 1 into it, yeah. So -2 times 1 plus 3 would be 1. And that's all because the effect of modulus was multiplying it by -1. So we just multiplied by -1 over here. Right. So this is how you sketch the modulus graphs. Right. And this is not the end of it. There's just a little bit more. What they ask you is basically, let's take the same graph. Let me copy this because why not? Right, what they basically ask you, they give you two modulus graphs and they ask you where they intersect. Right, so for example, here they have given you that y is modulus of 2x minus 3. Right, they will give you another graph. For example, mod is y is mod of 3x, and y equals mod of 3x will look something like this. Look something like this. Right. And what they ask you is basically when is 2x minus 3 equal to 3x, right? All they're asking you what is their intersection, so what are these two values? And there are a lot of ways to do this. You may be familiar with, taking the plus and minus, but in my opinion, what's the best is just first having a rough sketch. If the question doesn't ask you to make a sketch, even then it's good to have a rough sketch and then look at what lines you need to equate. So over here, I need to equate negative. Okay, so this is 3x and this is -3x, right? So in this, I've I find this point by equating negative 2x plus 3 to 3x, and then I find this point by equating negative 2x plus 3 to negative 3x. So negative 2x plus 3 is equal to negative 3x, or negative 2x plus 3 is equal to 3x. Right. So this will become x is basically negative 3, and this will become x is 3 over 5. Right? 3 over 5. Yeah. So this is negative 3, and this let me write over here. This is 3 over 5. And another advantage of graphing it is that when you once you get the values, you can also make sense of it, right? So here it, even though I've drawn a very, very rough graph, I can roughly tell that okay, negative 3 kind of makes sense, and 3 over 5 also sort of makes sense. And if I plug these values into either of these equations, I'll get the y value 9, and I will get the y value 9 over 5, which also makes sense because this point is lower than this point, right? So that's how you solve questions where you have to equate two moduluses, right?